Sighting the Mars Attacks Martian Warrior model kit for the first time, I immediately knew two things. I really wanted it, and I was going to make the lamp work. Luckily, my local hobby shop carries all manner of niftiness, and I was able to walk out with both the kit and a lighting solution. One-stop shopping with no shipping cost or wait for delivery. Support your local hobby shop, folks. I always like to add some personal touches to the kits I build, but other than lighting the lamp, this time around I didn't have too many preconceived notions. As usual, I snipped all the parts from the sprues, did a quick dry fit, then began the tedious task of gluing it together and chasing the joints with putty, files, and sandpaper. Next up, I hit it with a primer coat, and then fix all the crap I missed on my first chasing pass. I really don't like this part of the process at all. Sanding and filling and filing. If that's all model building was, I would never do it again. Luckily, the next step is painting and modding, which I thoroughly enjoy. I've been a Mars Attacks fan for many years, and though I do like the film, I decided right off that I wanted to use the original card set as my template instead of the movie. The differences are subtle but important. Sorry, Tim. I also always like to look at the internet for inspiration before I get started, to see what others have done. To that end, I poached a lot of ideas from Tom Herring's version on culttvman.com. You'll find the link in the description below. With my color palette chosen and a few customizing ideas in my head, I got to work. I may have been a professional bronze patinour for a short period of time, but I still put most of the blame for my layered painting approach on more than a decade of Photoshop shenanigans. Other than that, I have no painting education, and it probably shows. My process typically involves at least 2 layers of paint and dry brushing, an organic and messy approach. Sometimes a new layer will almost completely obscure the old ones, and I wonder what the hell I think I'm doing. I'm not sure why I decided the Martian weapon would char some areas of bone, but I did. I also decided to leave the bones lightly pink and wet-looking, as if the tissue had just been removed. Disgusting, I know. Like this ropey pile of glistening guts. The Martian warrior's head was one of the very last things I painted because I found it more than a little daunting. Once I actually started, though, it was a breeze. I had a similar trepidation about the pupils and waited forever to apply them. I removed the globe from the lamp almost right out of the box. I would have kept it but for the seam running around its middle. Instead, I lopped it off, slipped it in my pocket, and took it to the nearest light bulb aisle as a reference. I found some wax warmer bulbs that were the perfect size. Pity they didn't come in opaque white. I carefully filed both bulbs off their bases, both in case I screwed one up, which I did, then formed a new base out of JB water weld, which was sanded down to fit its lamppost socket. For a light, I used a Just Plug warm white LED stick-on light that my hobby shop turned me on to, and no pun intended. These are really cool, relatively inexpensive, and I can't wait to visit the shop for more. I had to slightly sand down the edges of the LED because it was initially too wide to fit through the lamp's aluminum center post. I also drilled out the other lamp parts and ground out a large hole in the base for future bulb replacement. If mini LEDs looked more like large incandescent lights, I would have kept the lamp globe clear, but the LED looked too goofy and the clear glass didn't diffuse the light well, so I painted it white. Another customization inspired by the aforementioned Tom Herring version was the addition of a face for the curb box over the sewer grate. It actually looks really naked without it, and adding it was an easy process. The more I thought about it, the more I knew I wanted to stick some crap on that lamppost. A few stickers, a flyer or two, you know. So I put together a few items in Photoshop, printed them, and affixed them to the finished post with Mod Podge. I decided our victim was carrying a half-drunk cup of coffee in that outstretched hand of his. At first, I was ready to buy a miniature cup off of Etsy. Then my wife pointed out a video detailing how I could make one myself, which was both embarrassing and so much better. The process of making the cup was a bit fiddly, but otherwise surprisingly easy, especially with the video's provided template, which I've put a link to in the description below. I thought my cup looked great, but now I needed a lid, and origami wasn't going to cut it. I thought a minute, then poked through our sewing kit for an appropriately sized black button, which I set to customizing with sandpaper, files, JB water weld, and some paint. Ta-da! Finally, I decided to change the direction of my Martian's head, cutting off and repositioning the neck post so that his face is more in line with his body and the muzzle of his gun. Look out! Here he comes! Moebius Models Mars Attacks Martian Warrior was a fun kit to build, and if you're contemplating picking one up, I highly recommend it. Further, the addition of the LED to the lamp makes this a pretty fantastic nightlight, if I do say so myself. Now to put it next to Junior's bed so he won't have nightmares. What's next? Great question. I have a stack of models to choose from, including one that's 75% done and has been stalled for over a year. Any doll hair aficionados out there? I could really use a clue. Anyway, until next time, thanks for watching.